Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is April 24th, Thursday night. Welcome to Santa's Magical Fellowship Group. Those who don't know me, I think everybody here does. My name is Melissa Rickard, known in small circles as Mel. I am just beyond excited to see you tonight, and I'm even more excited with our special guest. This is going to be a different show like we typically have because I'm just honored that I have a wonderful friend to visit with us tonight. You know him as Derek Dugan. I know him as a creative mastermind. Not only is Derek a professional Santa Claus, he's a creator of Sleigh Driver, Power, the creator of Sleigh Riders Riding Club, the creator of Yuletide Artist Marketing Network. I like how he put the Emperor of Derek Dugan Creative and Gatekeeper of Santa Derek, which is Lake Lanier's Santa Claus. My friends, I am so proud to announce to you, my friend, welcome Derek Dugan. We are so glad that you're here this evening. Thank you for joining us and your creative genius. And you're from Atlanta, right? Down there in Georgia.
Not originally. I'm a transplant, but I've been here 22 years, so um, I still don't call myself an Atlantean.
Where are you from originally?
Originally England,
All right. Very cool.
county of Cambridgeshire.
Fantastic. Well, we're glad to have you here. So,
Well, I very much appreciate it.
no
In good
worries.
company.
Oh, absolutely. And we've known each other for years, Derek. What you do always makes my head spin. I tell everyone, you're one of the Santas I want to be when I grow up. You just have it together. You designed my logo, which obviously I love enough to have it tattooed on my arm. Let me just ask you, how long have you been doing graphic art? I don't know how you want to describe just art in general.
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I'm 1,473 years old. So, but no, seriously, 69, and I've been doing this for over 50 years. So I have worked with clients large and small. My first client actually was my older brother. I had left home at 17 years old due to some personal issues in my home and moved to New York to stay with my brother. And the first night that I got there to his home, he put a Seagram 7 bottle down on the table, put a piece of paper in front of me, and gave me a pen and said, "Draw it. And you have 30 minutes to do it." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Well, listen, I know you're a great illustrator, but I want you to draw this bottle for me." So I did within 30 minutes, and it was so impressive to him that, and he was a professional photographer. He's probably one of the best black and white photographers that I've ever seen. Of course, Ansel Adams is pretty much at the top of the list there. But my older brother was very supportive of me, and basically, I tried to make my way through school as an illustrator and also as a waiter in a restaurant. But yeah, I've been doing this for over 50 years.
That's fantastic. Now, obviously, you're Santa Claus. Absolutely. What made you? And I'm tying these together in a different way. You'll see in a minute. What made you actually want to start wearing the suit, my friend? How did you get involved in that?
Oof, boy.
We're completely unscripted here at my show, guys. I'm putting Derek in the hot seat.
um, hmm, that's it's as you can tell, it's a little difficult.
No, no, we
Um,
can, we can continue.
but no, I think it's important to talk about it. Um, I had a corporate job that I was, and that's the whole reason why I'm here in Atlanta. I had transferred from a job in Orlando, Florida, to Atlanta, and worked for quite a large company, the number three check printer in the entire world. But I was transitioned up here to Atlanta to help build a design studio and work with a group of graphic artists and copywriters to develop marketing materials for financial institutions. And the financial institutions that we worked with ranged anywhere from 100 million in assets to over 100 billion in assets. So I worked with clients large and small. And I was more of the studio director. The gentleman who actually hired me was released about 6 months later. Um, the first week that I got to Atlanta, my mother passed away. And
That's what the Sens players are going to be feeling tonight. First game, playoff game on home ice. It's special.
Everybody, please mute.
Great for you. Everybody's.
so from there, I worked with the company for about 15 years, just under 15 years, and we were bought out by our competitor. And I was I was part of a crew that was released on my own recognizance at that time, um, and it kind of worked out perfectly. God works in mysterious ways, and um, I got a call from my little brother's wife, and my brother had been struggling with cancer for over 10 years, probably longer than that, several surgeries, and he was an amazing individual. And she asked me if I could come down to Florida and take care of him. And having a nursing background, um, and being my little brother, and I actually took care of my dad before he passed away of cancer as well. So I went down to Florida and took care of him, and he passed. And so I had a couple opportunities. A gentleman that I knew through the motorcycle industry picked me up, and I became the marketing director for a um, a national magazine, a motorcycle magazine. And while I was doing that, I was trying to fight through the demons of depression, and I got very heavily involved in motorcycle rallies, working anywhere between 14, 16, 18 hours, almost 20 hours a day at the rallies. It involved a lot of drinking, a lot of partying. And at the end of the rally, we had a deal with everyone who was a volunteer. Um, to pack everything up, we would take coolers. I mean, these are large, large coolers, and we'd fill them up with ice. Um, and we put all the liquor and all the beer in the coolers. And then we put the cooler in the circle, and we in the middle of the circle, and then we made a bet that no one would leave the property until all the liquor and all the beer was gone. And usually there were anywhere between 16 and 20 of us doing this, and we did it season after season. We did it rally after rally, and I've seen enough rallies to last 2, 3 lifetimes. And that didn't really help the depression at all. And because I was so depressed, it was a tumultuous time. And after leaving one of the rallies, I came home, and I was walking in the living room here, and my wife came up to me and she goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm waiting for an answer to a prayer." And a couple days later, I saw an ad that they were looking for a set director um, at the Mall of Georgia, and I applied. out of the blue, I was like, I have no idea what this is about, but you know, I know photography, I know set design, I know all that. So I went to the interview and I dressed in my finest black suit, my white shirt, my black vest, and my red tie, and it happened to be raining that day, so I had my black executive umbrella with me, and I'm walking through the mall, and people are looking at me, and I'm like, you know, well, this is weird. So I'm walking up to the area where they're doing the interviews, and this woman comes up to me and she goes, "Are you here? Um, are you here to be Santa Claus?" And I was like, "No, I'm here to be the set director." She goes, "I can't hire you to be the set director." And I was like, "Why not?" She goes, "You're kidding, right?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And she goes, "Has anybody ever told you you look like Santa Claus?" I was like, "Well, probably a while back, yeah, but not recently." I said, "Well, that's okay. You know, I came here to try to be the set director, but I'm not interested in being Santa Claus." And she goes, "Well, do me a favor, sit in the interview with us, and I think you'll find it pretty interesting." So I said, "Well, I got nothing else to do." So I sat down with everybody else and we shared stories, and it was great. We talked about our earliest Christmases and the things that we cherished about Christmas. And I mean, here I was. I was in I was in the bottom of the barrel. Um, and
His wife's got cancer now.
but that that opportunity that I had to be able to listen to people, and I realized that it might be something I'd be interested in. And at the end of the interview, the young lady came up to me and she said, "Well, you know, we hire all our Santas in January." And I said, "Well, that's all right. I'm not interested in being Santa Claus." And she said, "Well, I tell you what, I'll keep your name. And if you change your mind, maybe next year you can be a Santa Claus." I said, "Okay, fine." I didn't think it was going to happen. Within 48 hours, I got a phone call and it was her. And she said, "I know you told me you don't want to be a Santa Claus, but I need a Santa Claus in South Carolina." And I was like, "You're kidding me." And my wife was in the room. She goes, "What's going on?" I go, "Somebody's offering me a job to be Santa Claus in South Carolina," which would mean I'd be gone November and December. I wouldn't be home until Christmas Eve. She goes, "Go, take the job." Now, the job paid $4,300. I was gone more than a month and a half. It was the first time that I ever bleached my hair. My training program was on a DVD. It was sent to me 2 weeks prior to me leaving for South Carolina. And I did my training and I went to South Carolina. Now, the place that they put me in was 98% black. It was a very depressed area. A lot of crime, a lot of crime. They put me in a hotel that was positioned right behind a restaurant. Most of the people hung out at. My motel room didn't even have a lock on the door, so I had to put the chair up against my door and the knob on my door. Um, I had to pay for my own dry cleaning, so I washed all my shirts, my socks, my gloves, and hung them on a clothesline inside my room. And I would turn my heat on, so the heat would go ahead and dry all the clothes so they'd be ready for the next day. But the experiences that I had there, despite all that, the experiences I had there, um, God put you in the strangest places for his own reasons. And we don't understand in the beginning, and probably to this day. If it hadn't been for that, I'm not sure I'd be here.
Um,
So,
God does work
um,
in ways, Derek. And I just want to stop for one moment. Folks, we wear the suit, we wear the dress. This, what you're seeing, is the true heart of Christmas right now. We are people too. And a lot of us, it's a calling. It's a lot of calling that we didn't ask for. It was fate. But never ever hesitate to think that there's not a being behind that suit. We are, and I'm a very religious person. Whatever your beliefs are your beliefs, but I do believe God put you right where you need to be. And Derek, I know how difficult that was to share, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but that is a beautiful example of how you came to be, and a reminder that there's a heart behind that suit, and that you are Christmas magic, each and every one of you. You know, not robots. We're feelings. We're people with feelings and emotions and love. And Derek, I'm very honored that you shared, and I did not mean to put you in that kind of hot seat, my friend. I'm very
no,
proud of you. You're an amazing friend. Um,
uh, that,
let me. Can I switch out of that topic for you, my friend?
yeah.
Why Santa logos? Let's get a little more cheerful. What made you want to design logos for Christmas performers?
Um, you, the thing was, because I have the background and I've been an illustrator pretty much all of my life. And this gave me an opportunity to extend my skill set to a community where I saw a need. Um, it's interesting being in the marketing field. We always tell everybody, or we try to instruct or educate people that, you don't try to fill a want, you try to fill a need. Um, if you're filling a want, the want may not be there, but the need is there. And I felt as though I could lend my skill set to the community. And what has been amazing is now, traditionally, when I used to do logos, I did some logos for some of the biggest corporations in the world. And when you design a logo for a kangaroo court, that's probably the best way to put it. Um, there are different ways to build a camel, and I never understood. I always thought a camel either had one or two humps, but no, in corporations, camels have 14 and 15 and 16 humps, and they walk on many legs. But what I found unique about the Santa community is, and in my process in going through all of this, and working with every single one of my clients, um, is first I do a needs assessment. And part of that needs assessment is the first question, tell me about yourself. Um, Tell me about what you do. Where do you do it? What do you think is unique about your personification of Santa Claus? And then, of course, what do you call yourself? Now, through these conversations can last, anywhere between 30 minutes to 2.5 to 3 hours. And what I find very rewarding is not only am I getting to do logos for these individuals that are incredible people. I mean, I think I've done close to 100 logos for the Santa community. And what I find interesting and unique is every single logo that I've been developing, especially lately, they're stories. So when you look at a logo that I do, it is a story that somebody is able to tell. So the individual looking at it can relate to not only the story, but the individual behind it. Um, what I find interesting is I would say a lot of my professional friends who are graphic designers and logo designers will look at my stuff and go, well, that's not a logo. And I go, well, quite honestly, um, we're not normal people. We live in a community of hope and joy and fellowship and love, whimsical nature, magic. Um, Fairies exist in our world. Elves exist in our world. And what a wonderful place to be. And you can't have a normal logo, a two-color or flat one-dimensional logo that speaks to that speaks to the heart of the individual whose resemblance is within the logos that I develop. And I hate calling them logos. Don't I tell people that they're the beginning of the story. To me, they're the cover jacket on a book that you have to read. You have to open it up and you have to find out what's inside. And to be honest with you, I mean, that's what's happened for me personally. I mean, my experience with my own clients, every single one of them have got a look inside me. It's we got into this big debate almost a month ago about come yourself Christmas performers or whatever. And I know I ruffled some feathers on my position, but honest to God, when I go into a home, when I go into a hospital, when I go to a charity event, when I go out to dinner, I'm the same dude. I don't change. I If children come up to me and ask me, or you see them out of the corner of your eye, hey, you know, are you Santa Claus? And I never tell them I am. I'm just like, well, what do you think? What do you think? And so the logos I love doing them. And quite honestly, I had a waiting list that I'm actually done with. Um, I think I had 43 people on the waiting list and I completed them all. I'm very happy that I've done it. And my wife knocks on my door and goes, "What are you working on today?" And I'm like, "Trying to acquire new clients." She goes, "Good."
Well worth the wait, my friend. Well worth the wait for your talent. I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to actually turn the show over to you.
Our place is at the lake.
I don't know.
Everyone, please mute yourselves. I want to actually learn more about what you do, who you are. What's Derek Dugan Creative? Some of your strategies. Will you take the helm of this ship and tell us a little bit, give us a little insight into the world of Derek Dugan Creative and the creative Derek Dugan?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I started Derek Dugan Creative several years ago. And basically, it was a survival instinct. Because if you work in the ad agency world, if any of you have ever had the pleasure of being able to work in an advertising agency, you may understand that once you lose a client, you may lose your job. So I probably worked for 12 different advertising agencies in my lifetime. And the last advertising agency that I worked with, I was actually in charge of Bahama tourism. And they invited me to the Bahamas, and there was a grand celebration, and I got to meet everybody under the auspices of this advertising agency, Mackenzie McMahon. And Mackenzie McMahon, as I got back from that trip, got bought up by a agency in New York City, and their creative director came down from New York City, and I was working on a piece for Walt Disney World, and I finished the piece and I gave it to the sales rep, and the sales rep went out and was going to meet with Disney that afternoon, and they called me into the office at 5:15, and they handed me a check and they said, "Thank you much for all of your efforts. You're being released." Well, I just so happened to be working for the Orlando Magic at the same time. They were one of my in-a agency clients. And I knew that the Orlando Magic was working with a lot of freelancers in Orlando. And I actually knew a lot of the freelancers. I knew the production house they were working out of. And I introduced myself to the marketing manager. I gave her a call. I said, "Hey, Carol, it's Derek. Just got laid off. I understand you're working with some freelancers. I'd be interested in helping you out if you need the help." She said, "Can you get down here by tomorrow at 5 o'clock?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "I can get there earlier." She goes, "Can you be here at 7:15?" I said, "Sure, no problem." So that morning, I woke up early. I drove down to the Orlando Magic. I walked into their offices. Carol met me at the door. She pulled me into the conference room and she said, "I need this by 5 o'clock today." And I said, "All right, fine." Picked it up, went home, worked on it, took it back there at 4:15. She gave me a check, and that started my 5-year relationship with the Orlando Magic and the NBA. They were my first client when I put up my shingle as Derek Dugan Creative. And from that, I walked in the doors of Walt Disney World, Walt Disney World Resort Design, Walt Disney Development Company. And this is before the town of Celebration wasn't even, it was thought of, but it was never broke ground. So I created all the promotional materials that were sent out to all the CEOs, all the architects, all the engineers that were to promote this city of the future. And as an independent, to be able to have that amount of responsibility, and I mean, honestly, my agency, Derek Dugan Creative, was the size of my kitchen, which was 10 by 8 at that time. I had put up a table beside my window, and I bought my first new Mac computer, which was a Mac 2 at that time, the speediest, fastest Mac that you could purchase. That cost was $3,200. And of course, I had to go out and buy all the software programs. So my initial investment was quite healthy. But with the work that I did and the portfolio that I carried around, my name got around in the network. Um, I took on several clients. I'll tell you, and this is kind of funny. Um, I was going through a divorce, and there was a gentleman who answered an ad in the Orlando Sentinel that I was renting out the second room in a two bedroom townhouse, and the gent came and rented the room from me, and he saw the kind of stuff I did. He goes, "Oh man, you need to talk to my boss." I go, "Well, what does your boss do?" And he says he designs emergency equipment. I said, "All right." So I met with a guy. I ended up doing 2 logos for him. Now, these were the days when you could get $10,000 for a logo. Um, he really put me on the map as far as finances, which enabled me to expand my studio a little bit. And I just continued taking on clients from there. I worked for a healthcare advertising agency. Um, and back in those days, I mean, basically it was graphics. It was strictly graphics. I didn't do any copyright. And at the time, we hired copywriters out. Um, but I had probably one of the first virtual agencies in the Orlando area. Um, I hired writers, I hired photographers, hired screenwriters, um, filmmakers. I bought radio. I did everything from that little kitchen, and I did it for 4 years. Fortunately enough for me, I got a brand new client who opened up a restaurant, which was a kind of 20s, 30s style speakeasy restaurant. It was called Peter Scott's. Um, every piece of work that I did for there was totally custom. I submitted everything to the Orlando Ad Fed, of which I got Best of Show. And from that, it went national. I got best of show in national. And from that, I mean, everything just exploded. I mean, I was a one-person studio, and within the first 6 months, I had 63 clients. And from there, I got contacted by this corporate agency, and they said, "Come to Atlanta. We want you in Atlanta." And I said, "The only way that I'm coming to Atlanta is if I own the studio." And within 3 months, I got ownership of the studio. So that's pretty much where Dugan Creative came from. Um, Sleigh Driver was born out of that. I felt that there was a need to have casual apparel for Santas, primarily for Santas. I really didn't design for uh, design in mind for Mrs. Claus, um, um, and that's kind of a shame. But I will say, in this industry, in the apparel industry, clothes are much more expensive, even if you're ordering blanks for Mrs. Claus. Um, and some of the clothes they may not wear. Um, so I know my friend John McLeod has been doing some designs for Mrs. Claus, and I'm happy that he's doing that because I do think that there is a market out there. But I'm going to stick with my niche. I'm not going to stick my big toe in that pool as of yet. Because I really do, I don't want to interfere with what he's doing, and he certainly doesn't want to interfere with what I'm doing. And you know, we both respect each other. We're good friends, and you know, I'll continue to support him any way possible.
Can you talk a little bit about your inspiration for Sleigh Driver Apparel?
Mm,
I'm
yeah.
the number one customer here. I think I own everything that you've made at Sleigh Driver Apparel.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Slade Rider just came out of, you know, um, I hate to say this, but I'm not a red shirt wearing guy except for Fridays, in honor of the veterans. Red Shirt Friday, for veterans. Um, and I said, well, if I'm going to wear red shirts, then I'm going to do it with my own design, my own brand. So I created Slade Driver Apparel. The first one that I did had an antiquated Sleigh Driver logo on it. It was silk screened. I think I printed 72 of them, and I finally sold out of all of 72 within 3 months. And it's tough keeping inventory. So I tried to look for a way that was a little more economical. And there's really no way to do direct to print or direct to apparel printing in an economical way. So, you know, my cost on my product is a little bit higher than anybody else. I don't just print on one side, I print on both, and I use sleeves as well. So the cost is a little more expensive because they're multiple locations. But slavery apparel really came out of just wanting, you know, I talked about a need in the market. I saw a need in the market for it, having casual wear for Santas, you know, go to the beach, chill around the pool, go play baseball. Wouldn't it be cool to have a baseball jersey, you know, that Santas could wear to baseball games? Wouldn't it cool to have a hockey jersey that Santas could wear? That, of course, carries the brand Sleigh Driver. I don't specifically do anything that says Santa on it because I mean, I'm looking around here at the screen, and most of you, if you wear my stuff that says Sleigh Driver, people kind of get the idea who you are. So, for that reason, I kind of try to stay away from that. And you know, I want people to ask. I want people to ask. And Sleigh Rider was born out of Sleigh Driver. I mean, my background is a motorcycle community. I created patches. That's a back patch. This is a front patch. And if you're familiar with the motorcycle industry and you're familiar with one percenters, you don't do a three-piece rocker design for the back. So I kept this as a one-piece because you don't want any trouble when you're rolling your wheels down the highway and a 1% club comes up and wonders why you're wearing a three-piece patch. And typically, for anybody who doesn't know, a three-piece patch actually signifies the territory that you claim, whether you own it or not. And you can get yourself into a little bit of a hassle. But so Sleigh Rider came out of that. Sleigh Driver is my baby. I love it. I'm not creating as much as I did when I first started. Um, the other thing too is I create wooden coins through Sleigh Driver, and I started doing this almost 8 years ago. And I did the coins originally as an affirmation. So I came up with a word that would go on the coin that would have a little bit of a story to it when I gave it to the children. And my coins are larger than typical wooden coins. My coins are expensive. I just be honest about that. Um, but I have kids that, oops, there you go. This is my Rejoice coin. I'll get it right. There you go. This is a Rejoice coin that I made last year. Now I'll tell you, I've been doing this for 8 years and I have children that come up to me every single year and they're carrying all the coins they've collected from me for the past 8 years. And every single one of these coins has a story behind it. Every single one of these coins has a snowflake on the back of it. And of course, as you know, all snowflakes are different, but in mass production, there can only be one. But what's great about this is the story that goes along with it. So the children often ask me, well, how do you make the coins? And I say, well, after the end of the season, when everyone's taken their vacations and we come back and we all gather in the grand elf hall and we're all sipping on our hot chocolate and we're eating our cookies, we talk about what word needs to go on the front of the coin again. And so everybody has a chance to share with me what their own words would be and why they want those words on the coin. And what's amazing is every year when we come up, I'll say every year when we come up with a word on the coin, there seems to be something going on in the world that word in it of itself has deeper meaning than I ever thought it would. And it's just amazing how that works out. I don't question it. It just happens. And the children, when they hear the story, they're like totally into it. And the parents come and ask me year after year, if I don't hand them a coin and they've been there year after year, their parents come and ask me, did you bring your coins this year? Did you bring your coins? And I'm, oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hold on just a second. Let me stop here. But then I got this great idea. Well, why don't we spend a little more money, Derek? So I said, yeah, sure. Okay. Now, luckily, I have an Amex account that my wife has found. But I started making these gold coins.
Wow.
Now, typically what I do is I twin the wooden coin and the gold coin together. This happens to be a love coin. And this one I made in the year that Donald Trump first became president. And there was so much anguish in the world and so much bitterness and divide. And quite frankly, my wife lost a good friend of several years because of it. And I just thought, this is absolutely nonsense. This is absolutely nonsense. And we as Santas and Mrs. Claus and elves and whatever character you portray for the Christmas season, we really need to support this message of share and love. And I'm a big proponent of using the word light because I feel like the Christmas season is light. I just think there's so much more light in the world during that time. And I went a little bit farther, what was it, a year and a half to 2 years ago. And I said, what I want to do is I know we have the clause oath, and I definitely respect that. I definitely don't want to displace that. But I created my own oath because when I started building my brand, I built it as the ambassador of Christmas spirit. So I said, I need something to signify that. And as a designer and illustrator, I went ahead and made the ambassador pin. And along with that ambassador pin, I wrote the Christmas ambassador, the spirit of Christmas ambassador oath. And I've shared that with some of the people who have purchased the pin. Um, I've actually I've actually had these pins remade 3 times because they've become so popular. Um, and I carry one with me pretty much everywhere I go to help remind me. Uh, it's kind of like a sobriety pin for me. But it's also a reminder of my commitment that I've made um, to continue being better at that than who I think I am, if that makes any sense. Um, but it also reminds me that I have a duty. I have a duty to anybody I meet that needs needs someone to listen to, uh, or just spend time with, or tell a few jokes, or um, but for the most part, I mean, this has been an amazing, amazing journey. And I have got to meet many of you that are on the screen here. Um, and we've shared stories together, and we've shared jokes together, and we probably have shared a drink or two together. But I find this community I find this community in a lot of need, and you know, I definitely don't want to burn any bridges here, and I certainly I'm certainly not standing on the top of a mountain holding tablets that say "Thou shalt be a better Santa" or "Thou shalt be a better Mrs. Claus," but I think we owe it to the people. Um, I think we owe it to. Um, we're in service. That's the way I look at it. I mean, we're in service to one another and to the people that we meet. And I think it's deeper, it's much deeper than the suit. Um, if it was the suit, if I could put it this way, because I look at it from a totally different perspective. And I look at the deeper meaning for everything that I do. Um, but if it were just the suit, why do we get so recognized when we're on the street? You know, why do children come up to us when we're wearing khakis, flip-flops, a baseball cap turned backwards, or riding a motorcycle? Um, I think we're so much more. And and honestly, when another Santa had reached out to me over a month ago and said, I'm so frustrated. I think I've just come to the end. And quite frankly, I mean, he wasn't an aged Santa, maybe a couple years in the industry. And I felt so sad because we as a community, we weren't supporting it. We weren't supporting that whole idea of being of service to humankind. Um, and I think we need to remind ourselves. I think, um, and you know what? There are amazing performers out there, and they can call themselves performers day in and day out. I got nothing against that, but I look at it a little differently. You know, I did decide, um, I did decide that day in my living room that I was going to be a Christmas performer. I didn't. It wasn't me. And it wasn't me who was called to. I'll share a little story with you. When I was in South Carolina, I had a young man bring a newborn baby to see me. And he sat next to me and he said, "Would you hold my daughter?" And I said, "I'd be absolutely honored." And I held this little girl, and oh my God, if she was bigger than my hand, I'd be lying. And he just, his face was just so full of light. He was so proud. Just, you could shoot his day down, you know? So he leans over and he tells me, I'm a single dad. I said, "Well, how can you be a single dad? This is a newborn that you just dropped in my hands." He says, "Well, mom died uh, delivering the baby." And I was like, "Oh, Jesus. You didn't tell me that now." I said, "So what's the little girl's name?" He said, "Noelle." I was like, dude, you are killing me. You're killing me. And oh my God, out of the blue, I started singing the first Novell. was like, and he started singing it with me. When we get done with the song, um, I lift the baby up and I kiss the forehead of the baby. And I gave him a great big hug and I gave him a kiss on the cheek. And they left. Um, he seemed very happy, very excited. The following day, I come up to the set. I come up to the set and everybody's gathered around. They're all looking at the pictures. And the set manager looks at me and goes, "Santa, come here. Come here. Do you remember this guy?" I said, "Yeah, yeah. The dad who brought the newborn, Miss Noel. Yeah, absolutely." He goes, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What? What's going on?" He said, "He died last night in an auto accident." I was like, you, you have no idea what to say. You have no idea what to say. And that little girl probably ended up in defects. So I knew at that point, I knew at that point that whatever I do from this point on, it has to be from here. And I have to make sure that anybody who comes into this community knows that it's deeper than the deepest, richest color of red. It's deeper than that. And I'll toot my own horn here for a moment if I can, but the reason why I think my logos are so good is because of that. And I thoroughly make an effort that every logo that I do has got to look, number one, it's got to represent the individual or individuals that I've done it for. And number two, it has to look like it came from the North Pole, you know? I think one of the greatest compliments that I ever got from somebody uh, was the fact that when they looked at the logo, they realized that the person that was carrying that logo or was represented in that logo, they realized that they were truly from the true Great White North. So sorry, been going on, but I hope I hope some of this resonates with some of you. Um, you don't, you can't really understand the full effect that you have on people um, if you just go in with the mindset of putting on the suit and that's all there is, or putting on the dress, or putting on the wig, or whatever. I think it's something much deeper than that. I learned when I was a nurse in the hospital, believe it or not, yeah, I was a nurse. I worked orthopedics and urology. I was one of the first male nurses that were ever hired at the Atlanta Seventh-day Adventist Medical Center in Altamont Springs, Florida. And I had the honor and the pleasure of taking care of the first AIDS patient that came from Haiti. And this is even before I became a Santa Claus. And nobody wanted to work with the patient. And the patient was pretty much in a coma. We had a complete isolation technique when you went into the room and when you came out of the room. And I worked from 7-Eleven into the evening to 11-7 in the morning. I used to work double shifts all week long just to take care of this dude. And he ended up passing. And we had no idea. We had no idea what AIDS was. Nobody did. My son was just born. I would drive home from night and I would park in the carport of our Florida house, and our washer and dryer were right outside of that. And I'd go in and I'd take off all my clothes and I'd throw my clothes in the washer, and I'd stand there and wait for them to wash, and I'd put them in the dryer afterwards, and we'd go in, iron my uniform, and get ready for the next day. But it taught me something about being humble. It taught me about not making assumptions in healthcare. That's exactly what you don't want to do. You don't want to make assumptions. And the one thing that a nursing instructor once told me, she said, "Derek, how do you feel?" It was like when I first went on the floor, after I got my license from the nursing board. My instructor came out to me and she says, "So Derek, how do you feel?" I go, "I'm nervous as shit." She says, "You should be. I don't ever want you feeling like you can walk into the room and know everything that's going to happen here." And she was absolutely right. I mean, the number of patients that I took care of, the type of patients that I took care of, taught me to be a better person, taught me to think about humanity, taught me to think about more than just the disease and the diagnosis. Um, so I've had a pretty rich environment of being able, you know, I don't go to a lot of Santa schools. I feel like my entire trials and tribulations and challenges that I've lived through have made me the person I am today, and I really don't think anything else is going to change that. Now, I will tell you, networking with some of you folks and telling stories and listen to each of you, and being able to have personal calls with some of you, like John and others, um, you know, it's been amazing, Chip. I'll be honest with you. Your depression is a real thing. I don't think you ever get rid of it. There are times where, even as of this year, I thought, this is it. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to do it. I mean, I even contacted John. I asked John if he wanted to purchase Slay Driver. I was going to sell it. I was going to walk off, and I was like, phew, she's, I'm gonna, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go back into the sector, and I'm gonna go work at Publix and bag groceries. But I know, the minute I do that, I mean, I was walking out in the yard today, doing some work out in the yard, and I thought to myself, man, you can't do that. You just can't, you know, you can't hang it up, not yet. And unfortunately, um, part of that was brought back by a friend who passed away just recently, another Santa. I only knew him for a short period of time, but he was a good man. And everybody that all the stories that I hear from everybody else that write about him, oh man, he was a stellar individual. Uh, Not just a good Santa, but a great human being. And we're losing a lot of them. We're not getting any younger. We got to take better care of ourselves. Um, but hopefully along the way, how does this roll all the way back? Man, Jesus. I think we've definitely gotten a few bales of hay rolled up here. But I think if we can take anything that I said and probably apply it to marketing, um, I guess that's originally what we were going to be talking about. But how do I apply it to marketing? Would be a question. If anybody out there was going to ask a question, that would be a question that I would be asking anyway. Um, everything I do to promote myself isn't about promoting myself, but it's about promoting human kindness. And as a brand, of Santa Derek, as a brand of Christmas, everything I try to do follows in that brand. I'll give you a quick story about Gig Salad. When I first started Gig Salad, um, several years ago, I did exactly what everybody else was doing. Boom, put a profile picture up there. Oh my gosh, he's a great looking Santa. This will work. No problem. Well, the problem is there's a lot of other great looking Santas out there as well. And you really don't know anything by just looking at your profile picture. You really don't. And me as a marketer, I totally forgot that the picture I was using really didn't tell a story, really didn't tell a story about the person that this individual might be interested in hiring. So, what did I do the next season? I changed up my picture and I put a picture of myself with permission from the parent. I put a picture of myself engaging in a little girl, and her smile happened to be probably one of the biggest I've seen. Um, I got 93 requests for gigs. 93. The previous year, I got maybe two, maybe two. So the whole reason in sharing that is that don't think of yourself in one dimension, because you have multiple dimensions to you, to your character, to your look, and to the heart that is within you. And Cliff Snyder gave me a huge compliment one day when he saw one of my promo pieces, and he called me up. He goes, Derek, he goes, I can see God in you. I can see the light. I can see the joy, but not only in you, but the person that you're with. You know you're doing the right thing when you get that kind of connection. And I was like, that is an amazing word right there, making a connection. And that's my duty. That is my service to make that connection. And no matter what I'm doing, um, you know, all of us have experienced this, where you walk into a room and you have 40 children, 60 children, 100 children screaming your name, and they all want your undivided attention. And it's kind of hard to do that. But some way, somehow that does work out. And I think that is part of the magical experience that we bring to the table. Um, I'll say one thing about Mrs. Claus's. I think they have an amazing advantage over Santa Clauses. And the reason why I say that, and I wish that I would do a lot more marketing for Mrs. Claus's. I wish I would do a lot more logos for Mrs. Claus's. So if you're out there, you need a logo, get in contact with me. little sales bite there. But Mrs. Clauses, I think, have a great opportunity because I think children are more comfortable with them. I think there is a warmness factor, where their heart is just, man, it's there. It blows my mind when I see a Mrs. Claus. And unfortunately, um, a couple of the places, the resorts that I worked at, the Mrs. Claus that they hired were 18 and 19 years old and didn't know anything about Mrs. Clauses. So it opened up an opportunity for me to open up an education uh, opportunity for the resort to be able to train not only their elves, but train the Mrs. Clauses that they were looking for. Um, but I think there's such a huge opportunity. They're just natural storytellers. And I think the majority of the stories, they come more from the heart than they are created by AI or anything else. Um, and I know you brought up touching on AI a bit. But before I go there, I just want to say congratulations to all of the women uh, who have decided to take on that role because I think it's very important. And I think the children of today especially need that influence, not just from Santa, not just from the elves. And I think the elves are another. I just don't think that we've dove deep enough into the life of elves and how important they are to the story of the North Pole. And I think we need to dig deeper into that. Um, just some of my thoughts at the top of the noggin here. Um, I want to touch on AI a little bit because there's a lot of controversy, um, saying it's not real, and anybody anywhere can write a book with AI, and I talked a little bit about this when I gave my presentation in Memphis. Um, but I find AI gives us an advantage. A lot of us have things to do day in and day out. Some have full-time jobs. Um, Me, I juggle a couple different businesses and a family life as well, which definitely has its trials and tribulations. But I found AI to be a useful tool. I don't use it to take over everything that I do, but I do use it when I get into a creative slump, especially if I want to write stories. Um, and actually, ah, the other thing that AI allows me to do, number one, I'm not a songwriter. Number two, I'm not a musician. Um, I I'm I'm in awe of anyone who can play a guitar. I wish I could play a guitar, um, but I can't. But I can write. I've learned how to write my own copy over the years of the past 20, 30 years. and and I have grandchildren, and I walk through the house and I make up songs here and there. Um, AI helps me to do that. It helps me flesh out ideas. And do I take what AI gives me and make that the 100% entirety of what I'm going to deliver? I don't, because it doesn't have my own characterizations in there. It doesn't have my own language in there. But it does help me kind of blow my mind on, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. So I wrote a song while I was cutting the grass the other day. And again, this somebody say, well, it doesn't have anything to do with Santa Claus or it doesn't have anything to do with Christmas. And you know what? It kind of does and it kind of doesn't. Um, but I've kind of run into a stump. I haven't gone to AI to figure it out. And maybe some of you, can throw me some ideas. But it starts out, I got a gator in my PJs and I don't know what to do. How did he ever get there? I haven't got a clue. I'm not even sure I can read my own writing. Oh, yeah. Could he be a Hungersaurus or an escapee from the zoo? I got a gator in my PJs and I haven't any clue. So, um, the task, if you wish to take it on, is to help me finish some words or add some words to that song. And hopefully, I'll get someone to put it to a guitar and maybe we can make some music together. But my grandkids, I do it for my grandkids. And, if you're a grandparent, I know we all do silly things. I don't want to talk out of step on that. But I know we all do silly things, or most of us do silly things with our grandkids. And I think grandkids are kind of the reflection of the life that we wish we had when we were smaller. Um, I certainly feel like um, I pay more attention. I never knew my grandparents. Unfortunately, they're very, very old, and I didn't learn much from them. I did get a little bit of an accent from them, but for the most part, I wanted to make sure that I passed something along to my grandchildren. And I think part of being magical and being creative, I have a duty to do that. So I hope that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions? I've talked an awful long time.
And I just let you go because you're sharing your heart and your creativity and just your expressions on your face. You can feel that love, that Christmas magic, Derek. And that's what's so important to all of us. But yes, you're a man of many talents. Definitely. If you have any questions for Derek, I saw one in the chat, Derek. Just real quick, when you went back on your ambassador badges there, someone wanted to know if you had any left.
I do. I think I have 10 left.
Ron McClay, I'm sorry, Ron.
Whoever's interested, you can definitely private message me, or you can give me a call over the phone. Anybody, if you have any questions about anything that I do, or how I do something, or how do I create a piece of art? How do I do my marketing calendar? As a matter of fact, I was going to share my screen because one of the questions that came up when I was in Memphis, there was a private question that was asked of me after the session because, the sessions are quite quick and short. Um, was how do you put your marketing calendar together, or what do you do for social media? Any of you do social media? Raise your hand if you do. Um, how many of you actually do any kind of marketing whatsoever? Raise your hand. No. How many of you already have a full year ahead of you and you don't need to do any marketing at all? There you go. There you go. Well, you guys are spectacular. One of the things one of the things that marketing really ingrained in me is the concept of acquisition and retention and cross sell. Three particular areas. Now, it might be interesting to know that financial institutions spend 80% of their marketing dollars on acquiring new customers. They only spend 10% on retaining those customers. 10%. Why would you spend all that money on acquiring a customer and only spend 10% on trying to keep the customer? It doesn't make any sense. Here's what ended up happening. Did anybody remember the concept of free checking? Now, well, here's the problem with free checking. What financial institutions didn't understand at the time was it was great to give away free checking and not charge anybody for it, but they had to have minimum deposits. When the customers found out they had to have a minimum deposit, most of the customers left the bank. So 80% of the people that came into the financial institution through free checking programs actually left the bank. 80%. So the thousands and tens of thousands of dollars that they spent on trying to acquire those customers, they were gone, absolutely gone. So when I started taking a look at my Santa marketing and what I was going to do, I spent a lot of time and trying to develop content, because I'll share something else with you. In the world of marketing, 80% of your response is going to come from the particular offer that you have in the marketplace. It'll also come from the people that you try to market to. Now, everybody seems to try to market to a lot of the same people. Unfortunately, a lot of their efforts are just being misplaced. Um, Believe it or not, only 20% comes from creative and content. Content actually pulling more than creative. So it's very important if you're doing social media or you're doing your website or you're doing your one page or your one sheet, however you call it, it's important to have that content on there. And one of the most important pieces of content that I found is testimonials. Testimonials seem to pull very big for me. Um, I use my testimonials in my social media work. I use it in my website. I use it in my posts. And the other thing that I found where I'm getting more engagement on my marketing pieces is when I have quotes from other people. The quotes resonate around human kindness and love and humility and joy. Um, and I try to find great authors that have very poignant and succinct quotes, and I use those quotes in my posts, in my pieces. And because the photographers I work with are very generous in allowing me to use images in my photography sessions for my post on social media, because it helps them out as well. Um, the two together, the images of interaction with children and the quotes themselves work really well. They're nice and clean. There's not a lot going on there. And the great thing is, I'm not asking anybody for work. Um, I'm not going in your face and I'm not trying to be an acquisition machine. Number one, because I'm just trying to build up the brand. Number two, my calendar is already full. I can take privates, but as far as my calendar right now, it's 100% full. Now I do have weekdays that are open, and I'm going to kind of target some opportunities just for weekday. But that's still in the wheelhouse as far as it is now. Um, one of the one of the things that I found out more people are starting to use this. Does anybody use Canva? Okay, if you use Canva, good.
Yes, yes.
It's a great, fast, economical tool. Has a free version as well. But Canva is really good. If you're not a Photoshop aficionado, Canva also gives you the opportunity to create videos, which, if you know anything about social media, videos, especially in Reels, get a higher level of engagement than they do just regular posts. So you might want to consider that. Um, Also, beyond Canva, there are a number of free AI programs out there. Some of you have been engaged in some of the AI programs because you've created small little bobblehead like dolls with submitting your pictures in there, which has gone pretty crazy. But as I stated earlier, Canva, or not Canva, I'm sorry, AI, ChatGPT in particular, um, I wrote a story that I shared in Memphis about Mrs. Claus baking cookies in the kitchen. And I had the concept. So pretty much in my prompt, I wrote the prompt out. It's Mrs. Claus cooking in the kitchen. I described the kitchen. But with her back turned, the oven door had kicked open and one of the gingerbread, I'll say people, came to life and decided to jump around the room and encourage all the other gingerbread cookies to come to life. And also, so they had this great big party. When Mrs. Claus came back into the kitchen, it was total mayhem. So she had to encourage or coerce the main gingerbread uh, individual to help reassemble everybody to do exactly what they needed to do, which was taste good, taste like a good gingerbread cookie. Um, so I do encourage people to go on to Chat GPT and write a few prompts. You may not get exactly what you're looking for on the first try, but as I describe it to anybody else, it's a rabbit hole, and you can get pretty carried away with it, as some of my brothers in here have found in Midjourney and other places. But the great thing about it is it expands our creativity and it gives us an opportunity to think outside the box. Some of us may be kind of narrow focused, myopic focused, the medical term. Um, and AI allows us to kind of see things from a different perspective and be able to take what you have there and add your own personality to that story. And that's exactly what I did about the story with the gingerbread. I think I still have it somewhere. If anybody wants it, I'm more than happy to share it with you. You can use it ad nauseum, um, just as anything. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is I pretty much put a copyright on everything that I do. And if people want to use my stuff, I'm fine with it. Just contact me. Um, I do have an individual that is using one of my designs for his profile picture, and I reached out to him and asked him quietly and nicely if all he had to do was just. I appreciate him using it, but if he would have asked me permission, I would be more likely to offer it. But I asked him to take it down, and as of 3 weeks now, he hasn't. So I'm going to have to write a little letter to him and make sure that it's sent to him. But other than that, um, I think I'm going to ask you guys if you have any questions at this point, or if there's something that you need me to address, or if there's something that you'd like to see a sample of, and I'll share my screen, and hopefully that will help explain some of the things that I've talked about.
Absolutely. You have wonderful, wonderful things that you have touched on, Eric. Definitely. I know there's got to be some question out there. Bart had his hand up earlier. Bart Gaffney, did you still have a question, dear?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, I've been a great admirer of your work, um, and the design work that you do for Santas and stuff. I think is extraordinary. With this caveat, I would love to work with you on a design for myself, but I need something that is not as complicated, something more simple, because I have a print background going all the way back to the earliest of pre-Macintosh computers in pre-press and color separation and so on and so forth. And I know that some of these very complicated, very lush looking pieces of art that you generate are great in a video format when they're large format. But to try to reproduce something like that as a watermark or a small logo on a business card or something just doesn't carry over. And I'm wondering if you also do some of that other kind of work that you could help me out with something that's a little simpler and something that reproduces across multiple platforms a little bit better. And
Yeah,
I'll take my answer off the air. How's that?
no, no, it's not a problem. As a matter of fact, it's good to talk to somebody who actually uses the word pre-press. Um, when I grew up, we were cutting rubies for color separation. So you also understand what a number 11 blade is.
Yeah, well,
Um,
and I was trained to do dot etching in a wet
oh,
sink with
oh yeah.
monochromatic film using cyanide as a staging agent. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, listen, man, I came from that world, and I wish more designers, graphic designers, creative directors understood that. But to answer your question, I think it's a good question. Um, I do I work with a client and create what they need. Um, that's the whole part of doing the needs assessment in the very beginning, is to understand what is going to be your particular usage. I mean, that's critical. If you're just doing it for a business card, I'm not sure you really want to hire me to do your logo. Um, but if you're doing it to develop branded pieces across multiple platforms, then we discussed that at the time of creation. There was one particular Santa who actually, um, Leon McBride, and his partner came to me and asked me to do a logo for them. And they'd seen some of my other logos and they said, well, we don't need it that intense. That was their word, that intense. And I said, no problem. What are we looking at? Well, we just want to create a logo with our name. I said, okay, great. How much fun can I have with it? Well, we're all about fun. I said, great. So this conversation is right on target here. So here's what we're going to do. We talked about a few things and they said, okay, great. When can we see it? I said, well, give me about 3 to 4 days and I'll get it produced for you. And I'll show you some options. Now, I did something that I thought I wasn't going to do. I only did one option. I sent it to him. I got a call back from Leon. Leon says, dude, amazing. We love it. Now we need to embroider it on a shirt. I said, yep, no problem. So basically, I gave him different files. What I provided them with were PNG, JPEG, and PDF files. But I also broke the color down for them so they could get it embroidered. Had another gentleman by the name of Ed Hatz designed a logo for him. He calls me up and he goes, hey, I want the logo embroidered on the back of my shirt like you have Slade Driver. I said, yep, no problem. So I broke the logo down for him and I gave him a totally separate file just for his embroidery work. So as far as business card sizes and anything else like that, most of the logos that I develop can go down to business card size, and they still keep their integrity. Um, so typically, I don't have an issue with that, but I don't have an issue doing a logo that's only two color or one color. I have a lot of commercial clients that I do work for, and they don't they don't work at the North Pole. They're not very magical, and a lot of them are business people with one-track minds, and they tell you exactly what you want, and you do it, and everything is good, and you get paid, and everybody's happy. So it just depends. Um, I mean, you start with a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, and you create based on the needs of the client. That's what's great about being a chameleon designer. Chameleons, can change their colors and be flexible according to what environment they're in. And, that's kept me pretty busy for over 50 years.
Yeah, the spot for reading.
Bet you got something down there.
I
So I
will,
hope I hope that answers your question.
I will say, Derek, working on the back end of you, when you designed my logo, I was actually very shocked because one of your first questions you asked me, okay, who are you? That was the first time a designer ever got to know me first, and why I wanted a piece of fruit in my logo. You got to know me first, and the logo was secondary. It almost came organically just from conversation. And, it's personified who I am. But I think that in this day and age with corporate America, you don't have that. You don't have people who want to get to know you, to get your brand out there. And that was a very, very wonderful step that I took, actually meeting with you to come up with a logo, because you figured out who I was when I didn't even know who I was at that point. That's something that I'll always be grateful for. It's a way different approach than what I'm used to. Like I said earlier in the show, not many people have a logo tattooed on their arm. So I mean, it means the world to me. But I love your approach, because your magic shows through even in your business approaches. We talked for like 45 minutes like old friends on that phone call, and a few days later I had an amazing logo that just represented me. Even Missy said, Derek did her logo and it's different from anyone else because he listened. And that's a wonderful approach. So I'm going to tell people too, if you're on the fence about Derek doing a logo for you, shameless plug. It's not a shameless plug. Do it. Derek gets to know you, and he brings out the best in you without you even knowing it. And that's that Santa's heart that we're talking about. That's that passion, that love that drives you even in your creative fortitude. So I just wanted to say how awesome that procedure was in front of everybody, because that was amazing.
I really do appreciate that. You mentioned Missy Boggs, Snow on the Roof.
Derek, be nice.
I want
and
her to
listen
step
what you're
up. I don't want
saying.
to tell this story.
I'm sitting right here. Be nice.
First of all, if you haven't met Missy, she's an amazing individual, and her husband is just as amazing. And Missy does my hair. I've gone through 6 different colorists to find this goddess. And please don't raise your race just because I'm giving you those props. But she is amazing. She's absolutely amazing. I'm very excited for her because now she has her own little studio, and I'm very happy about that. But she had an interesting way of asking me to do her logo. She had given me something that, was it your daughter that created that?
Yes.
Yeah. I think originally she gave me something that her daughter created, and I looked at it, and of course, I was very objective, and we had several conversations on what she was thinking. And when I left, not only was I a little dazed and confused because the Benadryl I had taken to augment any issues with the bleaching, but
Gotta live with her.
I I didn't fully understand what I was going to be doing. So we went through several iterations.
10.
Don't tell them that. Don't tell them.
Hey, she sounds like a nightmare client.
Shit.
I was.
I'm just kidding.
Who
He almost fired me like 5 times.
I didn't say that. But it was interesting because it was almost like working with my wife. But we got it done. And, a lot of the things that I did for you and we initially showed and you kind of liked, and then you said, no, this really sucks. And
I
No,
never said that.
no, you never said
never
that.
said that.
You were very professional because you knew I had to come back and get my hair bleached. But yeah, it all worked out. I love what we both came up with, and
It's the best logo he's ever done. The best one yet.
Hey.
It really is a great logo, though, as someone, that's new to the Santa community. It's a fantastic logo. Like, it sells everything. It's everything that it needs to tell you about your business.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I wanted without color.
Well,
Yeah.
it's got a
Yeah.
spot of color.
It does. It has a red hat and a blue snowflake, and I love
And
that.
and gray is a color.
Yeah. Oh, that okay. You got me there.
Some may say black's a color too, but we know in art school. Anyway, there's
I'll just say I'm privileged to have a logo from Derek as well myself, that from a few years ago that we worked on, and we've had a lot of dinners together, and I consider you a good friend and a brother, and certainly an ambassador, and I appreciate your transparency and your vulnerability tonight. You're much loved, my man.
man, I appreciate that and love
Yeah.
back to you, man.
Amen.
We have had a lot of good conversations and working on that
Especially
logo.
about rabbit holes.
Rabbit holes. Rabbit holes are good as long as you got to carry carrots with you though.
Yeah.
Got to have the carrots. There's another individual here that I did a logo for in the tune of Frank Sinatra, and it's it's like it is like nothing else that you'll see in the Santa world. But the great thing or the thing that I was referring to is when Carl and I started talking about his logo, he told me he was a singer. I just didn't know how great of a singer he was. But he also told me about his fascination and undying love for Frank Sinatra. So when we start talking about his logo, like I'm a researcher. I do a ton of research when I do these logos. And when I started working on Carl's logo, I started doing research on Frank Sinatra. Well, come to find out, he used three main microphones um, wherever he sang. And in concerts, he used a special kind of microphone. In the studio, he used a special microphone. And in Vegas, he used a special microphone. All of those microphones are incorporated into Carl's logo there. And that's why that logo is so unique to him, but also tells his story and his fascination with probably one of the most greatest crooners that ever walked the face of this earth. And it's such a unique logo, but it is him. Every time I see that logo, and I go through all my logos just to keep me fresh. Hopefully, I'm not going to do a logo that looks similar to anybody else. And the great thing about that is every time I see it, man, Carl, he's right there. And I can hear him singing through this logo. And it's almost eerie sometimes. But Carl, I hope you're still enjoying that logo. And
I
I
am.
was
I
I
am.
was
You
so
know,
honored to work on that.
it really was a huge contribution to helping me to establish a brand for myself that kind of, didn't roll over anybody else that was out there. It was uniquely me, and I could build around it and represent, and it's just been terrific. And I
I
love
should
it.
see behind you, Carl, on your desk.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep I've got it. Notice I have a convenient QR code on this one as well, but yeah, I keep it here behind me, and it's on my business card. It's on my website. It's everywhere.
It's
Well,
amazing.
I appreciate and I'm humbled to be able to provide you some service and work together with you on I can't tell you how excited I was when that research turned up those microphones and to be able to recreate those and get them into the logo.
Well,
Um,
it just goes back to, the the care that you take in building it, and the level of detail that's there. It creates a story. It's not just logo. There is a story behind it. And
I cannot, I got to share this with you. after I did the research and I started playing with the logo and laying everything out, I was like, oh my God, I gotta call him. I gotta call him. I gotta call him. And I realized like it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Even though we're both in Atlanta, that would have been a bad call.
Might have
Well,
not been at my best.
yeah, probably, probably. But man, oh man, I've honestly, I'm thrilled. First of all, I certainly thank God for everything that he's done for me and given me. And not only that, but the people in the community that have supported me and the people who have adopted Sleigh Driver, who have Sleigh Driver hanging in their closet. I've seen people send me pictures of wearing the jerseys at the baseball games, and I couldn't be more thrilled. That's I used to walk into, it's interesting. My wife sold advertising for hundreds and hundreds of years, um, even though she's 34. But we would we would drive in Orlando. When we lived in Orlando, we would drive up and down Interstate 4, and she goes, "Oh, that's my client over there," and "Oh, that's my client over there," and "That's my client over there." And I'd wait till we get to the Omni, and I go, "But that's my client, the Orlando Magic."
Very cool.
But little personal story there.
Unless I
Um,
have a question too for you, Derek.
sure. Let me have it.
Muted, my friend.
Come on, there we go. Uh, so
This,
was it my
this is
turn?
Derek Dugan, and I'm listening.
Yeah. So I had to chime in because I mean, since I started my Santa journey in 2018, I met Derek Dugan on the over the internet, social media, and I just want to chime in that I'm so grateful that I picked a mentor that I kind of fashioned myself as well from your looks, you know? And am I am I on?
Yes,
Yes.
indeed.
Oh, okay. All right. Everybody was just still. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate you. You're you're such a great mentor, and
Oh,
I just can't thank you enough. You brought a lot of joy to my heart, you know, when I watch your stories, your photos. And you know, I've always been, I'm a creative person as well, but I'm always ho-humming about having you do a logo for me. And you know that, right? But you do such fantastic work. I mean, you know, I'm going to break down and get one, you know. Because I mean, time wise and I start something, I just can't seem to get it finished the way I want it done. And, you know, I dabble and, you know, and you're the master at that logo stuff, you know, and you're just fantastic. So yeah, anyway, thank you, Derek. You know, I appreciate you.
oh man, thank you, buddy. And man, it's been a great journey that we both have been on, and I'm excited for you because you've expanded in an area that honestly, I'd say there's a lot of us that wish that we could get some of the roles that you had, even though they're non-speaking. I mean, it's kind of funny when well, before I get into that, I definitely, man, I have a ton of respect for you, and I love us sharing things together and even having our own private conversations. And I think, to that, I think there's a lot of incredible people that we have both met in this
Mhm.
world and who have brought us joy and have taught us things. Um, you know, I talk to John quite frequently. We talk about, how to do this and that. And, I learn from him. He learns from me. It's kind of a, it's a sharing thing.
Yeah.
Um, I, I, man, I wish Matt Spalding, I wish he would get back behind the microphone and start doing those interviews again because I think he's highly skilled at it. I
New one
think he
up
does.
today.
He he's great at it. And I'm not blowing smoke up his derriere.
I
You
appreciate that.
know, he's got a great skill, and I think more Santa stories need to be told, and Mrs. Claus stories and elf stories. I just don't think we have enough representation on that side, and I think we need more. So Matt, I'm challenging you, and I still want to. I want to turn the tables on you and do an interview of you.
Yeah, anytime, brother. You know how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, yeah. So,
My
yeah,
my
that's
guest today is out of Bolivia. I had a very nice chat with a Italo Badani out of Bolivia last night, and I
oh
picked that
my,
up today.
So
that is awesome, man. That's going to be a good one to listen to.
super nice guy, Matt. That's awesome to hear. So yes, we definitely need to turn the tables on Matt. Interview Matt for sure.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Um, you know, it's we've been on here for an hour 48. I know we had 2 hours, and I can't believe that gone almost the whole 2 hours. But if any of you have any questions, you want to private message me or you want to call me, 770-503-6366. That's 770-503-6366. Um, I'm open to conversations. If you just want to chat, feel free to give me a call. If you have questions about anything or you just want to throw an idea and go, hey, what do you think about that? Feel free. Give me a shout.
we have
It
one last question, if it's all right with you, Derek. Bart had
Not a
his hand.
problem.
Yeah, I'd like to slide another one in and just kind of rewind the conversation back a little bit. I mean, Derek, nobody has any question that you're one of these Santas that walk the talk. So I'm wondering, closing up here, if you could talk about some clients that you have walked away from or events that you've walked away from and why.
Oh man, Margaritaville. Um, when I was hired to do Margaritaville, the general manager who hired me came in and said, "Tell us what to do." And I was like, "Oh wow, really? Um, wow, that's crazy." I mean, like carte blanche. Goes, yeah, just tell us how do we set this thing up? How do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? And fortunately, I've got that background. Put together motorcycle events. I've done studio setups. You name it. I've gone through it. If I haven't, I'll learn it. Um, I work for them. I was their Santa Claus for 6 years. I was their summer Santa for a couple of years. Um, but the last year actually the last year, the year prior before me leaving, they took me and they put me in a totally different area. There was no walk-through traffic. No one could see me. They didn't even put up exterior signs to say Santa's here or anything else like that. Um, and I went through COVID with them and everything else. And so I made a mention to the general manager. I said, "Hey, we're not getting much traffic here. Can we put up some advertising outside? Nobody knows I'm in this building. Yeah, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it." Well, um, pretty much didn't happen until the week before Christmas, uh, which was kind of disappointing because there are employees that they're paying for that are standing around not doing anything. And, we're not getting any visitors, they're not making any money, anything like that. So one of the set managers went around and started telling everybody how much money I was getting paid and what my contract was all about. And one of the employees came up and told me about it, which I went to the general manager and I said, "Hey, I'm not sure you're aware of this, but people are being told that I'm not going to be coming back next year because you pay me too much money and people know how much money I'm making. I'm not comfortable with that. And basically, he said, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. And I thought, okay, I'm probably not coming back next year. Well, lo and behold, they call and tell me, and they said, hey, we want you back. We need a new contract, write up a contract. I'm like, okay, you do know that there's a percentage increase for this year? And he goes, oh, no problem. Because they had me for every prime weekend night in November and December, every single weekend. That was my gig. And sending the contract signed, everything else like that. I go into work, and the set manager really just started taking an attitude, and they had done away with all the cameras and everything, and they said now everybody can take pictures with your phone. So large groups would come in, and in those large groups, everybody want a picture of this cousin and that cousin, this uncle, that aunt, this mother, this father, this son, this brother. And some of these visits were taking quite a long time, and the set manager sent somebody in and said, hey, Santa, in front of these people, hey, Santa, you need to speed this up. And I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem, no problem. Hey, Merry Christmas. Bye-bye. And we got through the evening, and another employee comes to me and says, you're not going to be here next year. I'm so disappointed. And I said, what do you mean I'm not going to be here next year? And they said, well, the set manager is telling everybody they're firing you. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So I call up the general manager, and I've known this guy for a long time. And I said, hey, dude, this is going on. I'm not sure you're aware of it, but I'm really uncomfortable. And, we need to talk about this. He goes, well, I'll handle it. I said, well, you told me you were going to handle it last year, and it's still not handled. And so I'm going to go to HR. So I went to HR, I filed a formal complaint, and the director of HR happened to be in a relationship with this particular individual that was telling me to speed it up. And that was the last I heard of Margaritaville, despite the fact that I've sent messages. I called my friend who was the general manager. I said, hey, let's talk about this. And it wiped 80% of my revenue out. 80%. And it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking because it's in the community where I live, and a lot of the people that came to visit, I know, I see them day in and day out in my community. Um, we have dinners together. We gather at some of the same gatherings. And it really, it kind of broke my heart. But the great thing that came out of that was that Lake Lanier Islands stepped up and said, you know, you're our Santa. You've been our Santa. This is my 10th year. I'm celebrating my 10th year with the new signed contract that I have with them. And I bend over backwards for them. I go to meetings. I sit down with their CEO. I sit down with their general manager. I have the conversations like I'm not just Santa to them. I am a consultant. They're like, how do we make our breakfast better? How do we market better? How do we reach out to the community better? How do we do? And you know what I say to them? Let me help you. You know, I'm not going to charge you for this. I live here. These are our people. And and you guys have kind of turned your backs on a lot of these people, and we need to bring them back in, and I'm going to help you do it. That's what I'm here for. And our booking has increased. Our breakfasts are sold out. I've trained the elves that they have there. They do elf tuck-ins, they do special events and things like that. Now that they have Game Changer, I'm included there. This was the first year that we brought the new fire department through, and they brought me in for a grand celebration and grand opening of the season. Um, so despite the fact that I lost Margaritaville and I probably would never go back there again, despite the fact that I absolutely love the islands, and I support them, uh, um, you gotta be you gotta be better than that. Um, and the old saying, one door closes, another door opens. And I believe that if you're doing the right thing, there are going to be not just one, but there are going to be more doors that open. Um, I had a photographer who signed me last year in January. We signed a contract. Um, in July, she dropped me, and it was a good bit of money. It was 4 full days of shooting, um, and that's not cheap. And I loved her work, absolutely loved her work. Um, but things happen, things happen. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh, Jesus, I'm going to market. And that's exactly what I did. I specifically marketed to photographers in my particular area. And I just used the headline, "Let's make magic together." And I got 5 new photographers that year to shoot with. Now, every single one of those photographers has re-signed with me this year. I'm fully booked with them. And the one that dropped me has brought me back on, and I'm shooting with her again. So that's 6 photographers that I'm going to be working with this year. And it's going to be busy. Um, but the need is there. The need is there. And just be vigilant in what you do. And remember that little story I told you about the financial institutions where, 80% of the new people walk out and they lose them. I've kept most of my relationships for over 15 years. 15 years. And that's because I keep in contact with them. In January, I send everybody a thank you letter. Hey, back in the North Pole, I'm chilling, trying to get a good little vacation in before we start work again. How much I loved the time with you, and tell Bessie, I'm still thinking about her, and I hope her broken leg is feeling good. Send them a personal message, and I get rebooked. And I've been doing this. I've been doing this for 15 years now, and it, you can have a gig, you can do a gig, and you can be the best amusement that you possibly can. But when you make a connection with people, it's totally different. It's totally different. I have children that bring me gifts every single year, and they make these gifts and they tell me, oh, this is how I made it. And, this is what it does. And this is what it's going to do. And I'm like, I'm so amazed at your creativity. We can use you up at the North Pole. Maybe you can be a consultant. And they dig it. They love it. And then, you know, there are gigs I probably won't take because of travel distance, and I live in Atlanta, and it's hard to get from point A to point B if you have 3 or 4 different gigs that day. So travel time, there are things I have to turn down. But if I do, I'll reach out to somebody and go, hey, there's a gig over here. Anybody interested? Hey, can you do this? You got the time? This is what I told them it was going to cost. So if you're going to charge lower, don't tell them that you got the number. I'm giving you the number. And you just you move on. I used to get really pissy when I was working in the ad agency, we'd lose a client, I get really pissy. Because it's hard work. It's not easy work. But you get older in life, you get a little more patient. I'm patient with Missy Boggs to a fault. But no, I'm kidding. I love her. You're going to have those. You're going to have those where you're going to have to put your foot down and go, "Yeah, I can't do it. I just can't do it." And I will say one thing. I know a lot of aged ambassadors that do so many gigs, and their health is affected by it. I wish we would stop doing that. We need to take better care of ourselves, or we're not going to be around much longer. A lot of us have diabetes. A lot of us are doing sticks or got measuring devices attached to our arms or whatever. But man, we got to take better care of ourselves. Because I tell you what, world's running out of people to spread peace and joy and laughter and love and humility, and you know, we got a job to do. We got a job to do.
Amen. And Derek, you all of that and above you share with the world, and you're right. There is only a limited number of people that can share the peace and joy and love and humility, and it's definitely a calling. And you, my brother, exude all of that. I am proud to call you a friend, a brother, a mentor. Like I said when we started this, you're one of the Santas I want to be when I grow up. You're just an amazing mentor and friend, and you're always there. Derek always picks up his phone, guys. You can always reach Derek. Derek always picks up his phone. You're not only an asset to the community, but you embody the community and the Christmas spirit, and you speak with your heart. And tonight, I'm tearing up again. Thank you for sharing your heart, your vulnerability, your creativity, your awesome Derekness. That is Derek Dugan. I have some other people that have questions that I've asked to email me, Derek, and I'll email you those questions, and I'll get an answer to them. But I can't believe it's been 2 hours. I have been mesmerized, and so many good questions, so many good answers, folks. Again, this is a perfect example of Christmas magic. We are the keepers of that Christmas magic, even in our daily life, in the experiences we share, everything that we do. We have the absolute chance to show Christmas magic on a daily basis. And if you forget about that, folks, look in the mirror, because looking back at you is like Christmas magic. So I love each and every one of you. I want to thank you, Dirk, bottom of my heart, my friend. I'm sorry to put you on the hot seat, but I am so proud of you, your work. Folks, reach out to Derek if you're looking for any kind of help. He is amazing. And I really hope that you join us more, Derek. I always love seeing you on here and always love talking with you. And tonight was just an amazing night. So any closing thoughts, my friend?
I do, and forgive me for doing this, but 2 years ago I reached out to find out exactly how to nominate somebody for the Hall of Fame. This young lady here, Miss Mel, my sis from another mother, we need to figure out how we get her into the Hall of Fame for not only her years of service, but her years of service to Christmas. Not only just Christmas, but being an incredible human being. Everything that you've been through, and I know you've had a tough year and some, and I'm always there for you if you ever want to pick up the phone or text me or do whatever. But young lady, you are, in my eyes, one of the epitomes of the whole meaning of Christmas. So anybody, when the opportunity comes up, I'm recommending that we nominate Miss Mel for the Hall of Fame. She deserves it, and she carries it every single day. So God bless you, girl. I hope you recorded that.
I am every single one of your biggest fan. Everybody that's here tonight, I am your biggest fan. And I know that, my dear friend, a lot of people say that, but I am so proud of each and every one of you. And I am just blessed to be able to do this. And thank you for your kind words. And as long as I can walk beside you in red, that's where my heart is, spreading joy, peace, and love. So thank you, Derek, for your kindness. And thank you guys. You guys are making me cry again. So, but again, thank you for being magic. Thank you for being awesome. And until I see you folks again, may sugar plums dance in your head and carry that light, that love, and that magic. And reach out to my brother Derek here. He is amazing. So until next week, God bless you all. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us, Derek. Thank you, my friend. God bless you. And I will see you all next Thursday. We'll have the polar opposites on following my show. You never know what J Mac and Jamie are going to get into. But thank you, folks. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Good night.